Hello, AoS fans!
Hello, everybody.
How is everybody in the world of the internet lands doing today?
Well, internet land.
How are
I've,
you doing, Robin?
I've been there. I'm not too bad, thank you. Just discussing the slightly surreal nature of still being at home, but yeah, I'm not too bad. Not too bad.
We've got a wild James Bartlett on the call as well.
A wild James Bartlett. Goodness me. Hello,
People who
James.
didn't
How are
know.
you? I haven't seen you for years. James, I used to work. He still works with you, Pete. Is that right? And
He does indeed, yeah, we still work together at the minute.
he used to work with me.
Yeah.
How are you?
And you can't see him now, really, either.
Oh, good. No, I
He
can't see
can
him.
see
He's just a red blob with a round head. He
Who else?
looks an awful lot like Malachi, actually.
Bizarre. So who else have we got in tonight? We've got Andrew Marlowe, we've got Ed Avery. Hello, Andrew. Hello, Ed. We've got Jan Sinkovec. Hopefully I've got that vaguely right. Hello. Rob Davis, Malachi, Matt, obviously, as well. I think I saw Matt the first time. I might have completely jumped over there. But hello, everybody. Yes, it's books tonight.
Books.
We're all about books. So, Robin, I'm going to go make a cup of tea, and I'll see you in about an hour and a half, yeah?
Brilliant. Okay. Where are we going to start?
I mean, where do we start? I mean, you start at the beginning.
That's a place to start.
I mean,
Well, I normally start at the beginning.
Well, you see, maybe that's where I'm going wrong with books. So
So I think last week we talked a little bit about kind of books that we read when we were younger, which is kind of how this kind of topic of discussion came up with for tonight's live chat. So we could quickly cover that. Pete, what was your introduction to fantasy?
I think my first fantasy book was probably something like one of the fighting fantasy novels.
Yeah,
like Ian Livingstone.
Normally where it starts. Mine was the same.
Yeah, I can't remember which one it was. It might have been the Crypt Keeper one, that weird hunched over thing with the long straggly arm and weird stuff going on like that. I'm gonna have to try and find a picture of it now to.
I don't know which one that is off the top of my head from your amazing description. I find it hard to believe. I couldn't think what it was, but
I think I'm getting it mixed up a little bit with Tales of the Crypt Keeper, which was obviously the terrible 80s TV show thing. So I'm gonna have to try and find it. But I think that was one of my first ones. And
James with the Earthsea trilogy, is that good? Because I tried to read that the other day, or not the other day, about 2 years ago, and I found it really dense, and I stopped after about I don't know, a chapter, which is like the sort of thing my kids do. But I was trying to read it to my son, and he just wasn't interested, so we stopped, and I never went back to it. Maybe I should. Who's read the Earthsea trilogy and rates it?
Crypt of the Sorcerer was the thing I was thinking of.
I've not even heard of that. I've not even heard of that. Yep. So we've got Fighting Fantasy, then The Hobbit. Yeah, mine was probably the other way around, Malachi. So my dad was a big Lord of the Rings fan, and he used to read me The Hobbit from probably far too young. And I also, being a geek, I guess, it's all in there. I love maps. So I love the maps at the front of The Hobbit. And I used to leaf through my dad's copy of The Lord of the Rings and look at the maps in there. And then he had a copy of the Silmarillion, which has got the fold-out map, the hardback. It's got the fold-out map in it. And I used to get out and look at, because it was two-tone as well, so it was almost like not legendary, but it was like amazing. It wasn't just black and white; it was red and black and white.
Red and black and white.
Amazing. The Hobbit or the Narnia books. It's funny about the Narnia books. I've been thinking about those because my son has had to do a little piece for English about Narnia, and I didn't discover them until I was a little bit older. I think I was at secondary school, and
were they in the back of a cupboard?
they showed a video of this as a cartoon, which I don't think I've ever seen since, but a cartoon of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and I thought it was amazing. And I came home telling my mum all about it, and I discovered that it was this sort of massive series of books, and was really quite big, but I'd never heard of it up until that point. But yeah, so I did enjoy it, and I got quite bored. Reading the others. I enjoyed The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, but the others I found a bit dull. I think I can't remember, the Dual Treader and the Silver Chair. Somebody talking about the Silver Chair there, and then I think I got a bit bored after that.
So I think so this is the image of the book that was burned into my mind.
Oh, ready for action!
Sorry about that, people. It hasn't done the right thing. So that's the book. That's the Crypt of the Sorcerer. That was the book I remember having.
Oh God, 26.
And it's got like this weird skingly arm down here and weird stuff going on.
About 21, which I suppose probably shows how much older I am than you.
A lot older. Older.
Is that Trial of Champions? I feel like that was Trial of Champions where they revisited Death Trap Dungeon.
Yes, you did Death Trap Dungeon first, and then you did the Trial of Tempest one where you went back into Death Trap Dungeon. And annoyingly, sorry Ed, no Ed Drums left. Sorry about that, people. You didn't have. It wasn't the same map either. I was really disappointed by that. But I discovered a little while ago that some crazy. I don't know why I was surprised by this at all, but some crazy people out there had drawn out a diagram of. There was one called like the. There was one where you were a monster, but you didn't know you were a monster. You didn't know what you were. You were some kind of weird scaled beast thing. It was one of the Fighting Fantasy ones. Whoever, if people watching, put it in the chat if you can remember which one it was. You were some kind of monster thing, but you didn't know you were a monster. You couldn't talk, and you couldn't read things, so you had to try and get out. And somebody had plotted out the whole book, and I remember following the plot on this diagram that they'd made and playing the book again and following the plot, and I actually got out of the keep thing that you were in. I don't remember ever doing that when I was a kid. It's one of those things that I very rarely ever did, complete a book. Who here actually ever completed a fighting fantasy book without doing the old turn to page 76? No, I'm not going to do that, and I seem to have kept my finger. You think as many pages so you could go back in time as much as you could.
I did the first one, the Forest of Doom, that properly.
Yes.
I think because my dad made me. I remember he had to reinforce the character sheet because I rubbed it out so many times. He stuck little bits of cardboard in the windows on the character sheet for me.
That was the problem,
after you've done the Maze of Zagor in the Warlock of Firetop Mountain, then after that you don't ever do them properly again because that was a nightmare. Absolute nightmare. So the Forest of Doom was the first one I got. I think a friend of mine introduced them to me or told me they were really good. And actually, the friend of mine who ended up picking up D&D and getting me into it that way, he was the root of all evil, really. He told me about them, so I got the Forest of Doom and then went back and picked up Firetop Mountain and Citadel of Chaos. So there are only those two out there.
Here we go. Got it. Creature of Havoc. Who remembers Creature of Havoc?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
No, I think I had that one actually.
Creature of Havoc. There we go.
Oh, I do. I can't have that. It was 24.
You were some kind of weird monster thing that you couldn't speak or anything like that. It's got a new updated cover, which I don't like. It scares me.
That's the Ian Miller cover, isn't it? Which I really like his books.
Could be.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because they have updated them all, haven't they?
Yes, they've released some in digital form, so you can actually get the digital. You can get it on a phone app and things like that, which is quite funky. I like the attempt to try and digitize and modernize books, and I know you know books don't need to be modernized. You know, books are books and they're timeless, but I like the fact that they're trying to get that old stuff sort of back relevant again and getting the new generation into it.
Yeah, I've still got my original ones, and I put them in my son's bedroom, and he wasn't in the slightest bit interested in them. But it turns out he's read them all because he does things like that. Yeah, but feign total disinterest. And I was talking to him, he said, "Oh yeah, I read all those. I've done those." Like, what? But he didn't talk to me about it at all. And I really liked the Shamanistic books that Steve Jackson, the sorcery books that Steve Jackson did on his own. They were really good. They were like another level.
What was there? There was one about a house, wasn't there? Fighting Fantasy, something about a house.
House of Hell.
House of Horror or House
Number
of Hell.
10. Number 10.
It had a really freaky front cover as well. Here we go. Got it. Open image. There we go. That's not the window. Here we are. So this one here. This one, House of Hell. That one's quite freaky. For a kid, you're like, oh, don't like this.
Yeah, House of Hell. Number 10. Look at that. I can still remember. That's another
Steve Jackson.
Another Ian Miller cover. I think it's Ian Miller. I think that's his name. He does some great covers. Used to love his art.
Really freaky. Really free. They remind me a little bit of what's the artist that does a lot of GW stuff. He's got his own little painting style that people don't like. He doesn't like people referencing now.
Oh, Blanche, John
Yeah,
Blanche.
Blanche. That's it.
They're
yeah.
similar. I prefer Ian Miller.
Yeah, I think I do as well. Blanche
you actually buy some of those prints on his. If you go Google Ian Miller, you can go to his website and buy some of his stuff. He did a set of books by Michael Scott Rohan, which were really nice, covered. And I think you can buy the covers. It's pretty cool.
We've got some new people in. Blanchitsu, yeah, John Blanche. Bezzy82's in. Better late than never. Well, we only just started, so you're not missing much. VJ is around. Hello, VJ. Someone mentioned back further up about Night Watch and Day Watch or something. I don't know what.
The Night Watch. There's Sergei Lukienko or something like that. They're Russian. They're quite clever. They're vampires and not vampires. I can't remember what the
One
one
that
lot
sparkle in the daylight. I'm all right.
and the Night Watch are actually sort of more. They're the vampire things, but they're actually kind of more lawful or good, if you will, than the Day Watch. But they're good books. They kind of keep each other in check. They're good. They are.
Ed says he's got a fighting fantasy book with a robot on the cover. Is it fighting a T-Rex? Possibly the most metal of all front covers. Because if it is, that'll be Commando Robot, which I'm assuming is a robot without his underwear on.
Commando Robot. There was one called Starship Traveller. That had a big robot on the front as well.
Here's Commando Robot. You can see a robot literally fighting a dinosaur, and I can't tell if he's going commando or not. But maybe he is.
That is definitely past my time. That one, I don't recognise that one at all. Well, that's in Spanish.
And I can't control the pictures. And there was is there a space one? Did you say Space Assassin?
I think it was called Space Starship. Oh, I can't remember now. Number 4. I can't remember what.
Not sure. Starship Traveller.
Starship Traveller. Yeah, maybe.
Which appears to have someone.
Yeah, that's the one. It's got a big robot blades.
I was going to say, it looks a bit like American football or something like that.
Yeah, well, isn't he going to cut his head off?
It kind of looks a bit like it.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, that's pretty weird. That's quite funky.
Yeah, I didn't like that one at all. But then that's just me all over. I used to be much more into fantasy than sci-fi, so I didn't like that one, and that's why I never picked up 40k really, because I never really liked. I much prefer the fantasy strand, thanks to my love of the Lord of the Rings.
Sorry, VJ. Sorry, VJ's just pointed out whenever I bring up the other screen, you go all echoey, and that's because of the audio. So, yeah, my bad. Sorry about that, guys. Oh, and then still echoey. So let me go back to chatting. There we go. Back to chatting.
Okay.
Sorry, people. Sorry. Continue.
Oh, I've forgotten what I was going to say now.
Oh, well. It's not.
That's it. We finished.
Finished. Bye.
So after Fighting Fantasy and Lord of the Rings, which I must have read about 16 times as a child, I then started to look for imitations. And my English teacher, when I would have been about 12, gave me David Eddings. Well, not gave me David Eddings, obviously, but gave me David Eddings books. And I really enjoyed those. Now they're a bit crap, frankly. They're very simplistic, but I did really enjoy those. And I've got a few notes here, and then obviously Terry Pratchett. I know you're a big Pratchett fan.
I love Pratchett, but like we said when we were discussing it the other day, there's a lot of his later books start to get a bit boring. Well, not boring, just a bit samey. I think I liked up to around about Monstrous Regiment, because just before that he'd done things like Night Watch, Last Hero, and Thief of Time, and The Truth, and stuff like that. But then he started getting into things like Going Postal and Thud and Wintersmith and Making Money and stuff like that. And then there's this one Dodger as well. Sorry?
Going Postal I enjoyed. I think when I started reading them, there were 3.
Well, when I first read them, the first book I read, I was 18. We just finished our A-levels and we were going on holiday to Mallorca for a week's going away, rave, getting drunk kind of thing, and I needed something to read on the plane going out, so I went to the shop and I bought I think it was The Last Continent, which was the last book in the series at that time, and that was book 22.
Right.
And I read that on the way out there, and then I was like, I love this, I need more of these. And then I just
is that the one where he makes Vegemite?
Yeah, it's Last Continent, where he goes to XXXX, or Australia, as it basically is. My favourite bit that I remember...
That doesn't make any sense now, because nobody knows what
they don't know what Castlemaine Forex is, do they? My most favourite bit in that book is Des goes into his library, and he says in his typical voice, give me a list of all the things that can kill you in XXXX. And because he had a manservant, didn't he? I can't remember his name.
Two Flower, was it?
No, Two Flowers in the first book. He was the old deacon.
Is Two Flower not in? Is Two Flower not? I feel like Two Flowers in the Lost Continent, but
he might be. Yeah, sorry, Matt. Spoilers. But he goes into the library and he says, "Give me a list of all of the creatures that can kill you in XXXX." and his servant manages to run away just in time as Death gets buried under like a mountain of paper and books, and he claws his way out and then says, "Give me a list of the things that can't kill you in XXXX," and a little piece of paper floats down that he picks up out of the air, and it says, "Some of the sheep." It's just that kind of that's what I loved about it.
Yeah. I do. Yeah, he was very, very funny. I still love and I've talked about it on here before, the boots, the Vimes boots theory of economics.
Yeah.
With the £20 shoes or whatever it is, letting it be. Yeah, that's very good. It sums up the world perfectly.
Yeah, I think it's just, I loved the way he would take very real events, very real problems in today's society, and he would just add that ridiculous spin on it, that Pratchettism of just looking at a problem from the other side and going, this is ridiculous, and you're just sitting going, this is ridiculous, why do we do that? It's just insane, it's mental. But at the same time, his stories, especially the ones that had like the city watching and stuff like guards and stuff like that, there was a real, there was just always a nice story going on there, and there was no they're just feel good books. You can read it, there's a bad guy, there's a fight, there's some danger and peril. Usually at the end it all kind of works itself out, and I kind of like that. There's been a spat in the last 10 years, I think, of books and films and stuff where, you know, right at the end when you think it's all going to be happy, there's like a real horrible thing that happens or some twist. And Black Mirror's a bit like that. They're really dark.
Yeah, things have got a lot darker in recent years. I'll get onto that, I think, in a bit, because that comes up with modern fantasy.
There we go.
Well, I don't read it that often.
Bit of a segue there.
But funny enough, I've been thinking about Douglas Adams today as well, because I've been wondering about getting my son to read Terry Pratchett, but I wonder whether, I don't know why I'm waving a pencil at you, I don't know whether he'll find Terry Pratchett dated, or certainly because I've suggested it, he'll say he doesn't want to read it. And then I'm also wondering about Douglas Adams, because I did find that funny a long time ago, but I just wonder whether it's dated. So James says he's reading The Salmon of Doubt. That's obviously newer, although he's been dead about 20 years, so he can't be that much newer. Do we think it's dated? Should I try and get my son to read it, or is it going to be past?
What's Douglas Adams? What kind of stuff did he do?
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yes, obviously. I'm literally reading his wiki page, and it's like right there in front of me now because I'm trying to work out. You know, I haven't read all of the Hitchhiker's Guide. I haven't read it all. I read bits, and I had a
similar... Okay, go read it for me and tell me whether it's dated.
Cool, will do.
In fact, yeah. Our Scott Bakker books are very good, Carl says. I tried to read one of those and I got bored. I think it was one of those, it wasn't what I was expecting it to be, and I stopped partway through.
Now, one thing we did get asked by our patrons, I think it was Matt actually, he asked what is our favourite book or our most treasured book? And I don't know if anybody else, I don't know if you've got a treasured book, Robin, or a favourite book.
I got a copy of The Lord of the Rings for my 18th birthday.
You're going to beat me now, aren't you?
Which was illustrated by Alan Lee. It's a big single volume book. So that's pretty cool. But then for my 40th birthday, I got a copy of the folio edition, three book box set as well. So they're my kind of two favourite books, I suppose.
I've got a copy here, limited print of The Colour of Magic.
Oh, cool.
And it's signed.
Wow.
Signed by Mr.
I have got some Sigmar Pratchetts, but I don't think I ever met him.
No, I didn't meet him, unfortunately. This was something my wife managed to get for me, which...
I've got some signed David Gemmell's, and because I loved David Gemmell for a period of time. But we went to... my Joe and I went to my wife went to a signing. Obviously, it was about 20 years ago or more now, and he couldn't stop looking at her, which is a little embarrassing because my wife's 6 foot and got this sort of long red hair, very reminiscent of David Gemmell type characters, and it was kind of started to get a bit creepy by the end.
You're like, excuse me, are you checking out my wife?
Oh yeah.
And if I can organise something, am I going to get some free merchandise for this?
We've got signed Watchmen graphic novels. Oh, that'd be pretty cool. Did you meet Alan Moore, or did you just pick up a signed one from somewhere? A signed first edition of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
Wow.
Bloody hell!
What did you do to get that?
Yeah. And
was that like when nobody knew her?
Oh, VJ, you talked about your signed Dragonlance Chronicles.
Oh yes, we talked about that last week. The
didn't we?
Dragonlance,
Yeah,
the
that is cool.
Dragonlance Chronicles. Who else? Who else read that? The Dragonlance Chronicles.
Me.
It was just one of those things. Yeah, I remember reading when I was in my teens, and there was there was Raistlin and Caraman
Yeah.
and Flint the dwarf, who obviously didn't he die of a heart attack in it or something like that? I can't.
God.
But
I remember being absolutely gutted when he went off and went to make that forge happily on his own.
Oh yeah, went off to a forge in the countryside, but you can't go and visit him.
No.
I just remember when I reread it though, there's bits in there where like in one of the books there was like the town blacksmith, and then obviously all the townsfolk have to run away and hide because the dragons have come and all this kind of Dracothian or whatever they were called and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then in like the third book, the blacksmith turns up again, but he's now got this silver arm, this magical silver arm and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And it doesn't explain it at all. He's just like, oh yeah, got a silver arm. Yeah, it's magic. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. Lost the other one. Got a magic one. You're like, what? You're just not gonna explain this?
Book that you have on your shelf that you really want to read but have never got around to. I have a copy of Infinite Jest on my shelf. I don't know if anybody's heard of Infinite Jest.
Sounds quite long.
Yeah, it is. It's an absolute brick of a book, and I did start to read it, but it's quite a hard read. I'd love to get to the bottom of that.
I don't think I've got.
It's got footnotes and things. I love books with footnotes.
Pratchett does that a lot. Sticks little footnotes in his books.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I like Pratchett.
There's one of the bits he does the footnote that's like half the freaking page, and it's about how in England we used to have a non-decimal currency system, and it explains how it all works. And then it basically has like this little pithy remark at the end of like, you can see how confusing they got when they went decimalised. Yeah, it kind of again highlights the fact that people are like, no, I don't like decimalised. It's too complicated. It's literally 100 in one. I don't know what you want.
Jan Sinkovich says, if anyone knows Alamut, his mother has a signed copy by the author from the 40s. Wow, I don't know the book at all. But that's old. My dad is a bit of a collector of not exactly rare books, but he has a copy of Dorothy L. Sayers' Gaudy Night, I think, first edition. I don't think it's signed. But yeah, that's quite good. And he's got a load of early Colin Dexter's. He was a big Morse fan. He's got a load of first edition Colin Dexter's. Some of those are worth some money.
Marky's pointed out, would the Rats of Nim count as fancy? I loved the Rats of Nim when I was a kid. I loved that.
Alamut is the novel the first Assassin's Creed game is based on. Cool. I've never heard of it.
Wow, I think that's just made my list of other books I probably never will read. But
yeah, that's cool. A friend of mine, or a family friend, apparently his friend is like a very tenuous link. Writes the Assassin's Creed game books. Some random. I mean, these are friends of my parents. So but they're in their 70s. But a friend of theirs apparently writes Assassin's Creed game books.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've always wondered sometimes because I mean, you read some of the GW books, you just think, how did this get into print?
I'm going to read Alamut now because I'll not read it, write it.
That's just really, rude. Just like, screw you, I'm reading.
So I don't forget. I'm going to look that up and see if I can get a copy.
It could be when my Skaven love started, Malachi. It could be. I think it's mostly the 80s and early 90s retro Skaven models that really hooked me, really got their talons into me and really hooked me on the love of Skaven. I think my favourite thing was actually the story about Nagash when he's going to do the summoning and basically raise all of the undead in the entire old world, and the Skaven basically, because they love dicking about with anybody's plots, they send Prince Alcadazar, they free him and give him a blade which he uses to kill Nagash. And it's not a book, it's just a short story, but it's just a brilliant short story about how he goes in there and does this, and yeah, pretty much cemented my love of Skaven.
The Hunter's Blade trilogy by R.A. Salvatore is one Matt's had for a long time and never read. I've never read any R.A. Salvatore, I don't think. I might have read one. I don't think I've read any. I have. I do have a bit. I haven't had it as long as Infinite Jest. I've got a copy of Alan Moore's Jerusalem novel, which is in 3 volumes and there's about 1 million words. I'm probably never ever going to read that.
Don't you have about 100 books sitting beside your bed waiting to be read?
My to be read pile is embarrassingly large, I'm afraid. I'm I like to buy books. I like to support authors and bookshops, so I buy books, but I buy more than I possibly can read.
This is why I think you and James would get on. James is a big fan of the supporting the author and buying the book. Although, I don't know, James, are you still online or not? Do you read many of your books these days? I mean, with us all working at home and stuck indoors, there's a lot less time for that.
I'm reading a little bit more now, a little bit more because I've included reading time in our school day, so we all sit and read for 20 minutes, half an hour. So that was quite a good way to ensure that I read. So yeah, I am reading more. I'm reading a really good book at the moment. I was going to talk about this later, but I will talk about it now because I think we would be interested. It's called By Force Alone. And it's a rewriting or a reimagining of the Arthur legends. And it's by Lavi Tidhar. I don't know if anybody's ever heard or read any Lavi Tidhar books, but his books are brilliant. Nothing's quite like this. He's more science fiction than this, but this one's Arthurian, and it's very good. He kind of takes a common theme and skews it in an interesting way. So he's written a book about a guy who writes pulp novels or he imagines pulp novels because Lavi Tidhar is from Israel, and so he's Jewish. So a lot of his books are to do with Germany and Nazi Germany, but he's written one where, try and get it right, it's called A Man Lies Dreaming. It's about a man in a concentration camp who was an author who imagines a story about Hitler being a private eye in 30s London. It's utterly bizarre and utterly brilliant.
That sounds really random.
And he's written another one called A Violent something, can't remember where about superheroes. So the World War, imagining World War II with superheroes. So there are Nazi superheroes and Allied superheroes fighting each other. That's pretty good too. So yeah, Lamented, check him out.
There's talking about doing alternate versions of things. I think James keeps buying books every time someone keeps suggesting it. James keeps buying it on his Kindle straight away. He's going to end up with a large bill at the end of this.
I've got a big pile of books down here, James. It's going to get bad for you by the end.
Somebody, there's a big fan group effort thing going on where they're rewriting the Horus Heresy. So obviously
really?
There's all the Horus Heresy stuff.
Are they taking out a lot of the additional adjectives that aren't required?
Well, they're completely rewriting. Like, they're basically taking the same idea, but they're changing all of the Primarchs. So there's still the Emperor, I believe, but then they're changing all the Primarchs, and they're changing typically which ones went bad and which ones went good and stuff like that. So, you know, obviously Magnus was a heavy Psyker and he went bad. In this one, they've got like a Psyker who stays good instead, and there's other people who turn evil instead. So it's... I haven't read a lot of it because a lot of it's obviously the names and stuff, and it really confuses me. But at the same time, it's really great that people are going into doing this and giving their own spin on these kind of things as well. Oh yeah, we've got to talk about Josh Reynolds as well.
Oh, Send Linda Sends. I've just bought that, or I think I've just bought it. I bought it about 6 months ago. It's sitting on my bedroom floor waiting to be read. Sorry, James. I'll talk to James. You talk about Horus Heresy and Josh Reynolds.
Oh dear. Send Linda Sends. I don't get time to read anymore. I never read. If I have any time, I'm either streaming a game on here, or I'm editing a match that we played, or I'm doing something to do with the channel. So never read anymore. Andy Marlowe says Dan Abnett is excellent. I think wasn't Dan Abnett a writer in general before he started doing GW stuff? I'm sure I read something about he did other stuff first.
I've certainly read a non-GW book by him, which was all right. Yeah. But Andrew's right. I have read Xenos, and it's pretty good. It's not brilliant, but it's pretty good.
Has anyone read any of the GW horror novels that they've done? And are they?
No, sorry, they're written by Kim Newman, aren't they? Or some of them are, because Kim Newman wrote. Because Kim Newman's been writing for years, and he turned out he'd written Drakenfels or something, and he's written quite a lot, some of the horror ones. Anyway,
Drakenfels, sorry. I remember reading that. Doesn't it have like some vampires and stuff?
I think that was the first ever what is now Black Library novel.
I don't think I liked that when I read it. I think it was a bit naff, but I might be misremembering. He did do Drakenfels. You're right. Yeah, I'm not questioning that. Obviously, you're right. I don't know. He's done some books. Genevieve Undead. There's some other Black Library books he's done. I'm not sure how new they are though, so I can't tell if they're
Because he was Jack Yeovil, was he?
Sorry?
Was Jack Yeovil? Was that his pen name?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does say, yeah. Writing as Jack Yeovil. Why'd they do that? I never understand that.
I think because they want to hide the fact that they're writing schlock.
Crap, basically.
Because he was a horror writer in his own right.
Okay.
I believe he wrote. I feel like he's written some Sherlock Holmesy type books as well.
Because Drakenfeld's the one where there's like a murderer in an Empire City or something like that, and somebody's trying to catch the murderer.
I can't remember. I did read it years and years ago, but I can't remember anything about it.
Well, maybe I'm thinking of a different book. I can't remember now. Dan Abnett's done Marvel comics as well. I didn't realise that.
Yeah. Somebody brought up Stephen King. I did have a Stephen King phase. Most teenagers have a Stephen King phase. I did have one. Eyes of the Dragon was out and out fantasy, wasn't it? Somebody mentioned Dark Tower as well. Not a big fan of the Dark Tower books. I started to read them and then I got bored. But I did have. There are some Stephen King that are definitely better than others.
Dead Hands is online. Hello, Dead Hands, and Kyle. I don't know if we said hello to Kyle. Megaloz is also around. And more people coming in. Welcome, one and all. We are talking about fantasy books tonight.
Don't specifically remember Skeleton Crew. I really liked the Bachman books. They're very good, Ed. I enjoyed those.
So just reading
the running man.
Just reading VJ's comment about he can't do audiobooks. His internal dialogue is too loud and constant. It's a bit like JD from Scrubs, just constantly sitting there, your own voice going off in your head.
I find Stephen King's endings are shite. Yeah, they can be.
I remember watching
endings in general can be difficult because you have all this idea of how it's going to go, and then when the author chooses the wrong ending, you can be left feeling disappointed.
Yeah, it's always going to be, I think, a lot of people annoyed by the ending of a book or a film or a TV series or anything. There's always going to be some people who aren't going to like the ending because it doesn't fit what their idea of that should be. And I think it was a Stephen King book that was done into a film where they're stuck in there's like this mist descends and they're stuck inside a shop, and they eventually venture out. They keep getting attacked by weird creatures and stuff like that. I can't remember what it's called. It's not the Mist, obviously, because that was
it's not the Langoliers, is it?
No, I don't think so. But
that's got Mist, but I can't remember. I haven't seen the film.
Okay, maybe it's the Mist. But they're stuck in a shop, and then they try and barricade it, and various people get killed and stuff like that.
The Mist is James Herbert.
Is it the Mist, or was it? I'm sure it was
James Herbert.
I think. Anyway,
I can never come up with James Herbert. Anyway, sorry.
I remember that in the book, and spoiler for anyone, you have to mute me for a minute so you don't see the ending. I believe it was this that in the book.
I can't remember what the book's called or who it's by, so we should be all right.
Yeah, we should be all right. Yeah. In the book,
Ed says it's the Mist, but that's not Stephen King, is it, Ed? That's James Herbert, isn't it? Which I haven't read. But
maybe that was it then. I'm going to Google this in a minute and try and find out. In the book, anyway. They get in the car and they drive, and they end up getting stuck in the middle of nowhere, I think, and then they can't go any further. So the dad is in the car with his son and a couple of other people, and they all end up committing suicide, I think, something like that, and that's how the book ends. And then, like some people come along, and they were just too late. But in the TV,
okay.
In the film version of it, the dad kills
Sorry,
the two other
I'm totally flummoxed. Sorry, Pete. Is it a short story or a whole book? Because I don't remember it at all, and I thought I'd read them all.
Maybe it's a short story. I can't tell you the ending now. Well, I have told you the ending. Anyway, on the TV, in the film version, it might have been a straight to DVD version, the dad sort of shoots his son and the other two people in the car, and then he can't shoot himself because there's no bullets left, and then people turn up and go, "Hey, you're saved." So he's just shot his kid, and then he's like, "Oh, great." Wonderful.
Yeah, he had some good. Some of his short story endings were really good.
Okay, in the book version, there's 3 in the car, and he shoots his wife or whatever it is. I think in the film they make it his son because it's always more gut wrenching when you have to shoot your own son, unless you've been in lockdown with him for 8 weeks, and in which case you're like, I don't care if I haven't got any bullets. I'll beat you to death.
James Herbert wrote The Fog.
Ah, The Fog. Yes, that's that.
Which is a completely different story. Entirely different weather phenomenon.
The light drizzle.
The mizzle.
Dean Koontz. There's a name I've heard before.
Dean Koontz. There's a guy whose books they were The ones I've read, like two-thirds, three-quarters good, last quarter awful in about every single case.
Do you think he
I
gets,
think.
stuck for ideas at the end? He's like, and I don't know.
He's written a lot of books. He's probably read a lot of books. He's written a lot of books. Um, yeah, I can't read or watch anything with kids being hurt or killed since I became a father. All these mystery books you see with like children's swings on them and things, and it's about a child murder. It's like not reading that, not reading that. I did read The Road by Cormac
Oh,
McCarthy not long after
Jesus.
becoming a father.
Oh,
Don't
God.
do that.
The Road is
Don't
just.
do that.
I haven't read the book. I've only watched the TV version with Aragorn, and I mean that tones. That's his actual name, by the way. Just to keep it all about Lord of the Rings as well. That alone, the film version of it. I mean, they cut a lot of stuff out of that, and that's still enough to make you want to shoot yourself. And you just, wow.
The book, I was in pieces. I went for it was quite a number of years where I could even think about the book without crying.
it's
I'm not going to think about it too much, just in case. But I like my children less now, so
So maybe I'll go read the book
won't
again.
affect me quite so much.
Read the book and just sit there tittering. yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, get him. Yep, I'll do that. Do not watch. Yeah, if you've got kids, or if you're going to have kids soon, or if you just take it, don't do The Road. Just don't do it.
No, don't.
The movie. Matt says the movie's tough to watch. Yeah, that's an understatement.
But I haven't tried for because I've read the book.
And the film cuts stuff out from the book, because I read an article. It was like I
Okay.
can't remember what it was. I think I
Why
watched
is it
the
so
film.
bad? If we tell you, Matt, then we'd spoil it.
It's just grim. It's just grim. It's like, yeah. I mean, your kids are older now, Matt, so you might be okay with it, because your kids are. Well, I say older. They're not like in their 20s, but they're old
It's
enough
not
now.
so much grim for me. It wasn't the grimness that undid me. I mean, it is pretty grim, but I'm okay with that. But it's the end of the story, because they're on this journey, and it's what happens at the end. It's just like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's one of those things that just really highlights the how nothing mattered kind of thing in the end. Almost, it was just gone. There was nothing.
I think maybe visually the film might be more. I don't know whether it's grimmer, because obviously when you're reading it, it's not quite so. Not so visual.
But this is the thing I read about. I read a few articles about the film after I watched the film, and one of the articles was basically, you think the film was bad? Here's some of the bits they didn't put in the film, and then you read about it like, fucking hell, this is even worse.
There's no punctuation used in the book too. You know what? I couldn't even remember that.
There is definitely no punctuation used in the film. I didn't see a single exclamation mark.
Clearly, Brian Blessed wasn't in it then. You could see his exclamation marks.
Just trying to think if I've got any books on my shelf that I haven't read. I don't think I have. I think everything. Well,
Wow.
I mean, there's a
I wish
few-
I wish I could say that about my shelves. But I've actually probably got less books now that I have read, because I have to make space for books, and I can't throw away a book I haven't read. So
Yeah,
So
It'd be ridiculous to buy a book, not read it, and then chuck it again.
I have done that. I have done that. So,
Anthony's just joined at the worst point in the
Anthony?
whole thing. The Road, Anthony. Don't watch it. Don't read it if you've got small kids.
yeah, which you do, I think, do you? I can't remember. Well, I'm just going back to books I read as a kid,
Yeah,
and I
go
something
for it.
mentioned these last week. I read Michael Moorcock and David Gemmell around the same time. And basically, there was a bookshop in my hometown, which was an Athena. So it was like cards downstairs and books upstairs, I think, or maybe the other way around. And I basically went in there and bought every Moorcock and Gemmell they had on rotation, my allowance, pocket money, wages, whatever, in there every week. And like the Michael Moorcock ones must have been in there for years, because they were like about £2 each, and it was brilliant. And so I read all through Gemmell and Moorcock, and some of the Moorcock ones definitely better than others.
Was there some that you couldn't get? So you couldn't get, you weren't able to get more cock.
I've never been able to get enough. No.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. Moorcock is both awesome and weird. Absolutely. Some of them are brilliant. Some of them are weird, and some of them are both. Some of them are awful. But Elric, and I really, really enjoyed the Runestaff ones, which is I can't remember who that is. Hawkmoon, is it Hawkmoon? They were just awesome. The ones where they meet and turn into the Eternal Champion. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I just found this on my shelf.
VJ's talking about your low-hanging fruit again.
Just found that on my shelf.
Oh, nice.
The Twins one. Time of
So
the
I have
Twins.
mine in separate volumes.
Yeah.
In fact, my original Dragonlance trilogy were the TSR ones. I got them from Games Workshop because back in the days when they sold everything, they were imported from the US. They weren't. They didn't have a UK publisher, and so I had the first. I think I only had the first two that way, and then by the time that I got to the third one, it had a UK publisher, so it had a different cover. And I hate that. Who hates it when the publishers change the cover partway through a series?
It's
or just
worse.
anyway.
It's even worse when they change the cover or they change the spine partway through a series. So 8 of the 10 books or whatever line up, and then the 9th one's just something like, why did you do that?
Absolutely. I've got books by 5. Well, I haven't got them anymore, but he had 5 Arthurian books, funny enough, by Stephen Lawhead. So there was Taliesin, Merlin, and Arthur, and then he did another one, and they changed the spine by the time he did it, and it was called Pendragon. And that was okay, but it was different spine. It was called Pendragon. That was all right. And then the last one, the author's name was Lawhead, just said Lawhead down the side. So it was just like, why have you done that to me?
Do these people not realise the target audience that they're catering for? You know, it's gonna be the same.
Maybe they did, and that's why they do it. So that you buy them.
Because I have
been tempted. I can't remember what series it was. Michael Moorcock actually, they did a load of reprints. And I was tempted to buy all of them because they did them in volumes. I was tempted to buy them all because the reprints were quite cool, but I resisted, except for ones I found in charity shops and things.
See, James and I work with somebody who would go out and buy, naming no names, but James, you know what I mean, would go out, and if they changed the style on like the 9th out of 10 books, would go back and rebuy books 1 to 8 just so they were the same one. I just found this in the back of this one, which is brilliant. I don't know if people can see this on here. It's got like a now on your home computer, fancy role-playing in classic AD&D game style. And it's got a bit in here about available.
Pool of Radiance. I wanted that game so badly.
Pool of Radiance.
It just was one of those development hell type games that just didn't come out for ages and ages and ages. And I think by the time it came out, either my computer couldn't run it or I had discovered girls and wasn't interested anymore. I can't remember, but I never played it. I think I read the book, and the book was shocking.
It was available on Amiga, Atari ST, CBM 64-128, Mac, Apple II, IBM PC. You could have got it anywhere. Put it back on the shelf.
Malachi says, we're thinking of a good fantasy comics. Only one he would be Hellboy. Did a good mix of fairy lore. I haven't read that. I've read some of the Fables ones. They're pretty good. I've never actually read Hellboy. The Fables ones are quite good. They kind of mix in fairy tales or and then I really like Unwritten, which are the books about Thomas Taylor. They're kind of a riff on Harry Potter, and they're by Mike Carey, who wrote The Girl with All the Gifts. They're really good. I don't know if you can still get them, but there was about 12 volumes of that, and I absolutely loved it. But I loved it so much, I've still got the 12th volume, and I can't bear to read it because then I'll have finished, which doesn't make any sense because I got it about 5 years ago and now can't remember what happened, so it'll probably be slightly spoiled. Does anybody do that? I'm a bit weird like that. I often don't read the final book in a trilogy just because I've got so much to read, and if I read it then I can't look forward to reading it anymore. I know that's totally nuts. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
It's a bit nuts because normally if once you've read 2 books in a trilogy, you're kind of invested a bit and you want to get to the end and find out what's happened. I know, it makes no sense to me whatsoever. That's really weird.
But I have got a few books of series I really like, and I haven't read the next ones.
I tend to be because Matt's just done this. He's just said he's read a recap of the Road book, and it sounds grim. I'm very liable to do that. If someone says, James says that's mad. Yeah. I'm very liable to, if someone says you should watch this film or you should read this book or you should watch this TV series, I just know I'm going to end up going on Wiki, reading the summary, and then just massive spoiler, and at the end he actually died. Oh, fuck's sake. Well,
Anonymous Jeff does it. Yay! He's the sadist person I know.
Well, I mean, you don't get much saner than an accountant for the NHS.
Exactly, yeah.
Although,
Yeah.
if I hadn't met you, I'd kind of assumed that you looked a bit like Ted from Scrubs. But I've met you, so you don't look like Ted from Scrubs, but that would be funny.
But also, I find, oh yes, I'm there now.
You're there.
I find with books, quality sometimes is up here, and then the more further deeper into the trilogy or series you get, the worse it gets. And so in some ways, it's better to stop even before it finishes, because the best stuff was at the beginning.
MacLeod suggests Eve of Man.
Oh, I've not heard of that.
They've just released the second book of the trilogy, so Robin, you've got all the books you need.
Yeah, who's that by? I've not heard of that. What's it about? Tell me more.
Yep. Give us a little succinct 10-page summary now, MacLeod, in the chat comments.
Eve of Man. I've not heard of that one.
Eve of Man. Anonymous Jeff says RIP Ted from Scrubs. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very sad. He's the reason why I'm rewatching it. Sorry?
And the Blanks. That was his band.
Yeah.
I love that band.
I'm rewatching Scrubs at the minute because of that, and I've got my oldest into watching it as well, which he's finding quite funny.
Is he enjoying it? Because we're looking for something to watch with my oldest.
It's a bit. Your eldest, I think, will find it okay. It's got a bit of a sexual reference in it. There's nothing too bad in there, but there's a lot of talk about quickies and sex, and there's a lot of allusion to it. But for the most part, yeah, I think he'd probably quite enjoy it, and it's silly because it has all of those weird daydreamy moments which give you a little bit of a break from the wrist slitting depression of it sometimes. But yeah, I quite like it.
Have you ever read the Tab Williams books? I have read some Tab Williams books. I've not read Jennifer Fallon's Second Son trilogy, but I have read Tab Williams books. I've read the Memory, Sorrow and Thorn. I feel like I've read some other things too, but Memory, Sorrow and Thorn I really enjoyed in the day, although they're pretty hefty books. What else have we got there? There's lots of things people being suggested there.
Just clicking around, I've noticed we have these things called super stickers and super chat. I've got no idea what the hell those things do. Oh, I think they're things people have to pay for, so no one's going to use those. Ignore that.
It's by Giovanna and Tom Fletcher. Oh, you've already put me off.
You're not a Tom Fletcher fan. You're disappearing off. You're disappearing out of shot.
I'm just cynical. That's all.
What, you're cynical about his name?
I'm cynical about people who are famous for other things.
Oh, I see.
Write books.
I see. Well, I mean, sometimes famous people who are famous for one reason could be good at other things too. Maybe.
Well, they can, and often
they're not.
They're not. Yeah. Yeah. David Walliams. I love David Walliams. He writes book. Children love to read his books. But there's an awful lot more better children's books out there than David Walliams' books.
My audience doesn't like his books. We tried to get him into them, and we bought
exactly. It's because they're not very good. They're like bloody rolled doll by numbers.
Well, I mean, he's famous for other things, isn't he? So he's just copying somebody else's work. Yeah. There was Wally Wonky and the.
I'm angling him now, apparently. Well, I mean, I might be wrong. It's purely prejudice based on nothing. So it might be wrong. And actually, you're not the first person who's told me that his books are good. Because does he write the one that's sort of a dinosaur series? Is that him too? And somebody else really likes those. And I thought, I'll check those out. And then I saw they were Tom Fletcher. I was like, perhaps I won't. But
Robin, you are literally judging a book by its.
I should
cover.
suck it up. I'm not. I'm judging a book by its author. It's a different thing.
Wasn't there that thing a couple of years ago where J.K. Rowling tried to publish a new book under a pseudonym or whatever, and then people found out, and they were like, oh, it's by J.K. Rowling, and then everyone...
Yeah, they leaked it just before they started, the Galbraith ones. But people like those, but of course it's possible to know whether people like them because they know J.K. Rowling wrote them.
And that's why she wanted to do it like that, wasn't it? Because she was like, once you got so far into the Potter craze, I don't think she could have written a shit book, because, I mean, look at things like, well... Let me rephrase that. I don't think she would have written a book that her fans would have thought was shit. She could literally just put it at the wall, take a photo of it, and say, here's the 7th book in the series, and people would have lapped it up. But so she wrote those other books with an attempt to sort of see, was I lucky, or can I actually write stuff? And then it didn't work. So because people went, oh, it's by her, and everyone like, oh, we'll get that then. Oh.
Name of the Wind. People talk about Name of the Wind. I've not. I think I own it, but I've never got around to reading it because I keep hearing different things about it. And ironically, being totally inconsistent now, I'm going to say something completely inconsistent. I didn't want to start it while the series wasn't finished because although I never finished series, maybe it's Robert Jordan's fault. I read the Robert Jordan books, and he bloody died before he finished them.
Well, he didn't shut up ever. I mean, if he just got to the point, he'd have finished about 6 books before the end.
So I deliberately didn't start the Name of the Wind until they were all arrived, and actually because I haven't read Game of Thrones either, much for the same reason. Lies a Lot Lamora too. That's on my list, my notes. That's one of my favourite modern fantasy books. But the Lies a Lot Lamora is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But the others are shit. But well, not shit. That's a bit harsh. They're just not as good. But how do you follow Lies a Lot Lamora?
I don't know. I've read that one, but I mean,
have you not read it? It's a heist. It's like a fantasy heist, and it's absolutely.
It's like a fancy version of Reservoir Dogs.
Kinda.
Kinda.
It's funny and it's violent and it's really good, and you should totally read it.
Yeah, James has told me to read it. To be fair, he's given me a whole list of books to read, but I never have time to read anything anymore.
Okay.
It's just, never have time. Especially now we're in lockdown. It's like I could have.
So Jeff's the same. Me and Jeff are the same person. He likes to know a series is sorted since there are so many unsatisfactory, unfinished series. Yes, exactly.
I mean, to talk about that with the Game of Thrones series a bit, I read the first 3 or 4 books just as the first TV series started, and I think I had just about finished the 4th book when the TV series had gone past where I was, and I just gave up reading the books at that point because it was just sort of spoiling it for me, because whatever the book said is going to be completely different to the TV show. I didn't like the TV show; it become a bit more of a a popularity contest. But I did like the original books because I liked the way he wrote things, in that nobody was safe, and he just wrote. He wasn't one of these people that came up with the idea of all the books in advance and then fleshed it out. He just sort of wrote stuff, and people could die left and right. But then after all, that got tiring too. So it was like, so somebody else has turned up. I'm not going to really pay attention to him because he might be dead in about 2 paragraphs. So,
well, that is a problem I have with a lot of books. Well, not so much that people will die, but the grimdark books, which I know are really popular. What's his name? Joe Abercrombie, and to a lesser extent, Mark Lawrence. I can see that they're quite interesting, but I found that they were trying so hard to be gritty and dark and overthrow the typical heroic fantasy tropes that actually they just created tropes of their own. Nobody cares, anybody could die, that kind of thing. Although that might be true to life. If anybody could die in the book, it becomes a bit. Well, I don't really want to read it because it's that I don't want to read about people nearly being heroic and then dying or having to have sex with their mother or something. It doesn't interest me.
Well, that's just ruined my evening. Who's James picking a fight with? Who are you picking a fight with, James? Trouble is, we see the comments like 30 seconds after the things we've said, so we'll say something, move on to something else, and then someone else will go, "You're an idiot and you're wrong." And we're sitting there going, "What's that I said?" Well, I mean, I'm not questioning it, but which bit exactly? I don't
know who James is talking about, because it seemed to be he seemed to be agreeing with me, and then suddenly he was fighting. Maybe he's taking part in 2 live chats at once.
Maybe it's the 2 authors that you don't like, or that you're not a massive fan of because they're a bit too grimdark or something.
Oh, what Abercrombie and Lawrence?
Fitch.
Yeah. You're wrong. You might be right about Mark Lawrence, but Joe Abercrombie's overrated.
I mean, yeah, I don't mind a bit of grimdark. I like a bit of realism every now and then, but it's then a bit like, and I'm going to completely come off of books now and go into TV, it's a bit like things like Black Mirror and The Wire, especially The Wire. Goddamn The Wire. Brilliant TV show, but fuck me, it makes you want to shoot yourself by the end of it. It's like so depressing. And I was talking to a friend at work about it when I watched it years ago. He was like, "It's brilliant, the cinematics, the storyline, the gritty realism." Like, yeah, but it's depressing. And if I want depressing, I'll watch the news. I want something in fancy to lift me out of that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think the grimdark books, I can see why they're popular, because I mean obviously 40k is grimdark and that's very popular, but it's not what I want to read. I want to. I suppose I still hark back. I want that feeling that I read when I was a kid. So I mean, they're very two-dimensional, and I like them to be a bit more three-dimensional. But they're generally people who are heroic and trying to do good, and I like that. I like that feeling that I'm reading about somebody who I want to win, rather than somebody who I don't care whether they die or not.
Yeah, it's a bit like the George R.R. Martin books. At one point, you got to the stage you're like, I don't care if you all die because you're all wankers. You all have done horrible things, and you all deserve to die.
Well, on that vein, the Copper Cat books by Jen Williams are very good. They're kind of David Gemmell-like, but they've got a lot more dimensions to the characters, they're good. I recommend those. How about a Witcher? Horton Rat Minis says I keep meaning to read those. I haven't read them, but I'd like to.
Horton Rat Minis is on. He says, "How about a Witcher?"
Yeah, that's what. Sorry, I would like to read those, but I haven't. I'll tell you what are really good. Has anybody read these? The 5th season. I can't remember what the series is called. The Broken Earth books. The Broken Earth books by N.K. Jemisin. They are really, really good, and they turn all convention on its head. I thoroughly recommend those.
The elves live underground, and the dwarfs live in the trees.
It's not quite like that. There is a Weiss and Hickman series like that. The one they did after Dragonlance. I can't remember what it was called. It's pretty awful. But the elves that do. I think the elves do live underground, and the dwarves live in the trees. No, these are really good. I'm trying to remember what I liked about it now. It's kind of like a post-apocalyptic fantasy, but the timeline's a bit messed up, so it's quite unexpected things happen. This comments are getting totally out of control now.
Yeah.
Although James, you talk about the Jemisin books, James, and then Pete says he liked the fuck scene, which I don't think was. Don't think it was a reference to the books I was talking about.
No, I was talking about the. Anonymous Jeff said that he loved the scene in The Wire where they just keep saying fuck, where they're working out the murder, and it's just like 5 minutes of them just doing things and just saying fuck, and it's just, I love that scene. It's brilliant, and for that it was brilliant. But at the end of each season, it's like, and everything's back to the same as it was. Like all these people
everywhere. Horn Rat Minis is a catalogue of books that I'd like to read and never got around to reading. Neil Gaiman's I've got Neverwhere. I keep wanting to read it, but the Neil Gaiman books I've read I haven't particularly enjoyed. Apart from Fortunately the Milk. Fortunately the Milk is brilliant.
I sometimes wonder about whether these things I should just get audiobook versions, and when I go to bed, stick the audiobook version on, and then just listen to that till I fall asleep or something like that. Because the wife does that sometimes to help her sleep, is that kind of thing. But I probably would fall asleep in about 5 minutes. I'd never get anywhere through a book.
Podido Street Station. That's a good book. Did my head in a little bit, but that's a good book. Podido Station, rather, not a street station.
What's that one about then?
I can't even remember it really now, but it's about a big futuristic city. It's quite grim. It's China Miéville. He writes really strange books. So talking of things that are a bit more. This is an interesting one. It's not quite grimdark. Anybody read these?
Dark Dawn.
Dark Dawn. Sorry, where am I going? Jay Kristoff. Anyway, and I can't remember what the series is called. But they're really, really good. The Nevernight Chronicle. I haven't actually read this one. This is a book that I bought and I haven't got around to reading. The third book in the trilogy. I haven't got around to read it. I even bought it in half. I'm so desperate to read it, but I haven't read it yet.
But that's the third book, Robin. You never read the third book.
No, but I read this is exactly it. It's like, well, I can read that any time. That's there to be read, and therefore I won't get around to reading it. But they are so good. They're almost like they're almost like young adult books because they're kind of the teenage protagonist, but they're very, very, very violent. And the people in that book aren't very nice, but you want her to win, and that's the difference between for grimdark is Joe Abercrombie book. I just thought I don't care if all of these people just die in a big fiery conflagration. Whereas in this, the character in these books, she's pretty ruthless, but she's very funny, which helps. But you want her to win, even though she's pretty violent, an assassin. But it's a kind of trade. The first one's a kind of training novel. She goes to the place of assassins, and it's lots of tests and things, which is always quite good fun, isn't it?
Neil Gaiman is persona non gratis. An Englishman breaking quarantine on a Scottish island, he'll be Wicker Man.
Yes, yeah. It was unfortunate. I'm not going to pass judgment, but yes, it was unfortunate.
Well, this is the problem. I mean, there's like what's his face? Oh God, Elon Musk at the minute. He's turned into a massive arsehole. Like you used to be the nerd's hero. You used to be generally just a hero to a lot of people, apart from the whole pedo comment thing a while ago. It's like you were doing okay.
I think he's having a midlife crisis.
I think he's honestly a tosser who's got a lot of money and has managed to do actually some good with his money, despite the fact that he's a wanker. Unfortunately, his wanker persona is beating out. Is unintentional, but welcome. It is just sort of overriding any of the good he's done so far. So you might save the planet with all your new technology, but you're still a twat.
Yeah, he's a wanker that shows his true colours. That's true. You can normally hide behind your billions.
Yeah. Unless you're Trump, I guess, as well. I mean, but then you get to a certain stage, you're like, I don't care if you think I'm a wanker. I'm a billionaire.
Kings of the Wild is one for Pete. Fantasy plus metal. Who's that by? This is my next read, or maybe mine read 2 or 3 books down the line. It's a fantasy book.
of the Orange Tree.
Yeah, by Samantha Shannon. It's a proper epic fantasy book. She wrote the what it's called. I knew what it was called earlier. I didn't write Bone Season books, which are kind of a bit Philip Pullman-like. They're set in Oxford in this kind of alternative world where there are all these different types of spellcasters, and it's kind of a bit 1984-ish as well, because it's kind of there's like this surveillance society, but there's also these magic users within that, and they're pretty good. That's a series that's stalled in the middle of I think she said it's going to be 7 books, and there's 3 out, I think, and that's kind of stalled. But no wonder it's stalled, because she wrote this in the middle of it, which is 817 pages or something like that. It's a proper fantasy book. I've realised it's got like a glossary at the back.
Oh, you can't beat a good glossary. Although it is annoying sometimes when a book has a massive glossary for things that just don't need to have a different name. So I just call it a cow.
Yeah, well, that's true. And a map.
Oh, I love a good map.
Bit of map. So I'll report back when I finally got around to reading it. I've got a couple of other books to read too, but I'm going to read that. Going to be my next fantasy read.
One thing that really ticks me off about whenever fantasy books put a map in it is they always, they know what a book looks like, right? And they know how the pages are connected together, right? So why the do they always make the map so you get that section that you're never going to see unless you want to really pull the pages apart and screw the whole book up, which no one's going to do. Like, make the map so that it fits on 2 sides, 2 pages, and there's a gap there. Just
what, fold out maps like the Lord of the Rings map that we were talking about at the beginning.
Something like that.
I loved back in the day. I love those maps. Still love those maps. I mean, I think Tolkien's basically responsible for every fantasy book that anybody likes having a map in them, isn't he?
Probably.
I had a big argument with our friend Dave about whether fantasy books should have maps. Funny enough, he thinks they shouldn't.
That surprises me.
Yeah, exactly. But
I'm sure he has, irrefutable arguments as to why that is the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like it could be a matter of opinion, or that these things might not have a full proper answer or anything like that.
Dead Hands is really into the Arkham horror books at the moment, and so what are they? Are they based on what? Because there's lots of different iterations of Arkham, aren't there? I don't know. I don't know what they are. What are they? Dead Hands. I'm intrigued.
Oh God, you've got Robin buying another dozen books, and they might fit in with the game, and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, I found a book. I found a set of books this week, or I heard of books called something like The Case of the Fractal Monks, or something like that, which is a mathematical set. It's the 3rd book in a set of mathematical mysteries, which intrigued me. So I might be checking those out.
I feel
based
like
on Lovecraft. Yeah, I haven't read any Lovecraft. I read a book recently which is like a non-racist version of Lovecraft books, which was quite interesting. I can't remember what that was called, by Matt Ruff, who writes crazy novels.
Isn't there like a group of authors?
Slightly odd novels.
Isn't there like a group of authors or artists or people who basically they've taken the Lovecraftian stuff, they're going, we're doing it our way and we're not racist?
That's the role-playing game.
Oh, right, okay. They're like, we're going to do our own version and it's not going to be all KKK and white spiky.
It's the team behind the role-playing game or some aspect of the role-playing game.
Yeah. It's always a shame when you have somebody like that, like an author that you really love or something like that, and then you just find out they're a raving, like, psychopath, like a horrible racist or Elon Musk or something like that,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, I liked you, and now I've found out you're a wanker.
Yes. Yeah,
It's just-
I've often thought about that, about you, Pete. I'm afraid.
James will tell everybody about the story of me and the racist attempted assassination of Obama. There was a picture of a guy going around with a gun, and people at work thought he looked like me. I didn't see I didn't have a beard back then, and this guy was like bald and stuff, and everyone's like, "Hey, it looks like you, Pete." Like, yeah, thanks for comparing me to the massive white supremacist racist who wanted to kill Obama. Thanks for that. That's really nice. Don't look up Lovecraft's cat name.
No, yeah, don't do that.
I'm gonna have to fucking do it now, aren't I?
Okay.
I'm gonna show it on the channel just in case.
Why Pete does that?
For God's sake!
A couple of books I have enjoyed. I've been reading a lot more sci-fi in the last 5 years. Has anybody read Becky Chambers' Long Way to a Small Angry Planet and those books? Because they are brilliant. And on a similar theme, I've just finished reading the Embers of War trilogy. It's a trilogy I finished. They're really, really good.
Is that because there's a fourth book come out?
Well, there might be. No, I actually finished those. So, yeah, but Becky Chambers, fantastic. And that's just an example of her latest book. I have it in hardback and I haven't read it. It's another example of a book I really want to read but I haven't read. Because I'm an idiot.
I can't work out how I'm ever going to get back into reading. I don't know when I'm going to ever have the time to read again. In amongst the lockdown, and a lot of people might say, but it's lockdown. I mean, you've got loads of time now. Like, no, if you have kids and you can still work at home, you have less time, if anything. There's none of that time. And even when I used to commute, I used to spend all my time editing videos and stuff as well. So I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to read ever again. Maybe
just get James to read for you. He seems to have read everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, every now and then I'll say something to James, like, we'll be chatting at work, I'll send him a message like, any good books lately? And I know I'm going to get like a page of, you should read all of these books in this order for all these reasons. So I've got lots of books. I just feel
like if I had been friends with James, our YouTube channel would have been totally different. We could have been like booktube superstars.
Well, you used to do your 5 reasons to read, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I still write them. I still write a book. Normally write a book review on a Tuesday. So yeah, but yeah, I wish I had more time to read and write about books, but it's the channel takes over more and more, and I'm trying to get through my Soulbound videos.
Anthony says he's lucky that he even has time to watch this whilst his son watches Octonauts. To be fair, I think I'd watch Octonauts. At least you might learn something about about ocean animals. Yeah, that was quite educational. Yeah, I liked Octonauts. The Vegemals though, what the hell were they? I mean, those things were weird.
Yeah, I read in bed normally, and when the children were at school, I used to try and allot 20 minutes to read. And we still do it in school, so that's where my reading goes. Reading a book while Robin is deciding on his next move, that's a reasonable choice, really.
I could probably get through a few novels during some of our games.
Yeah. Yeah, I read. I fall asleep now when I read as well, Matt.
Anthony says he hates the Night Garden. I hated the Night Garden. I hated that with a passion. I thought it was kids' TV is nonsense anyway, but the Night Garden to me was irrelevant nonsense. I hated that TV series. Jeff says he's really enjoyed The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night Time, which is a really, really great book. I read it when it came out because when I was working in Waterstones when it was huge, it came out, and we'd have people coming in going, have you got that book about the dog? And you go, yes, there. The next person, there's a book. It's to do with Sherlock Holmes, and there's something about the night time. Yeah, it's there. Nobody can ever remember what it was called. I've got Katie Price's latest No, but read that instead. And obviously we've had the colour discussion before. I think. So have you got a book? I think it's got a brown cover. Yeah, it's there. It's over there. Don't worry, it's in the top 10. It's always going to be over there. There was that other book, wasn't there? That one about a kid getting a smack or something. What was that called? Because that caused a lot of uproar, didn't it? There was a lot of people. Slap. Was it called The Slap? Yeah. That caused a lot of uproar. There was a lot of people. Half the world were saying this is my Bible, and the other half were like this is horrific slurring nonsense, and everyone who reads it should be beaten to death, and you're like, or it's just a book that some people liked and some people didn't. Just, maybe don't let it rule your life. Andrew Rice says before we...
It's an Aussie author, I think. I know we've got some Australians in this morning, this afternoon, this evening, whenever it is.
Well, for them, it's the morning.
But yeah, it's an Aussie author, I think, The Slap.
The Slap,
They made it into a TV programme as well, didn't they?
Did they? Yeah, okay.
I think they did, yes, Netflix or something.
We've really gone off subject now because James is talking about Hey Dougie.
Hey Dougie. I missed Hey Dougie. My children stopped watching CBeebies, even my youngest one.
And get your kid to watch I think it's called Pocoyo. Only the first couple of seasons because it has Stephen Fry doing the voiceover.
Yeah, they actually enjoy that.
And the kids have got it, and they've got it on for their... Sorry?
Never heard of Gecko's Garage. I'm talking about Gecko's Garage now.
Weird one. You could have the kids could watch Pocoyo for the silly duck and all that kind of stuff, and I'd just sit there going, Stephen Fry. I could listen to him read a 1989 Ford Mondeo, manual, and frankly, I like that. Anybody who's looking for an audiobook to listen to, Stephen Fry does all of the Harry Potter books.
I want to know a good story about that. Well, it's his story really, but it is a good story.
Go on, then.
That he told it, but he will tell it better than me.
Well, we'll get him on the show. And
do stop me if you've heard this before. But apparently, I think it was when he was reading number 4, there was a line that he just couldn't get, and it was Harry pocketed it. And he just couldn't say it. But J.K. Rowling, when she signed the contract for the audiobooks, was that they could change nothing. So it had to be absolutely right. But they phoned her up and said, could they change it to Harry put it in his pocket? And she said no, they couldn't. He had to say Harry pocketed it, which he finally got through. And then apparently in every single novel afterwards, the line Harry pocketed it is in the books.
Just like, screw you.
Yeah.
Bendy-nosed bastard, you can read it how I like.
Garage. There's discussions about Garage going on. There's a really funny book, which I can't remember what it is. It's a bit like, it's a book about a load of people in the 1950s crashing an aeroplane on an island, and they're basically UKIP supporters. They basically, that's what it's a piss take of UKIP supporters. But there's a thing in there where they talk about how do you pronounce garage, and if you call it garage, then you're common. But if you say garage, then you are. Yeah, it's like annoying Nigel Farage by calling him Farage. To rhyme with garage.
I prefer to call Nigel Farage a twat. I think that's much more accurate.
Twat. Yeah.
How do you spell Farage? C-U-N-T.
Garage rhymes with Farage. There we go. Scone or scone? Always a big debate in this house.
I think whenever we get into that debate in my house, I'm like, I don't care. Just give me the bloody thing. I want to eat it.
Yeah, that's true.
Just give me the. But generally, the bigger argument we have in this house is whether the jam or the cream goes on first. And again, I'm like, who cares? Just slap it all on, smash it in your face.
We've had this discussion before. I normally split the difference because one lot of people say, well, it rhymes with cone, it's just scone. Other people say it rhymes with gone, and I say, well, I'm going to rhyme it with done and call it a scun from now on.
I'm going to use that one next time because that's usually something that my mother-in-law will say, something like that. And we're like, well, actually, I remember years ago, and this is completely unrelated really, but we were eating jam and scones and stuff, or scones, whichever way you want to pronounce it. My eldest was only maybe 1.5 at the time. We gave him some with cream and jam on, maybe it was 2, and he literally sort of ate one and just had this look of bliss on his face. He'd obviously eaten too much or was not hungry by that point. He had another one, so he just sort of crunched it up in his hands and then very slowly very slowly rubbed it into his hair, and he had this spaced out look on his face that suggested he'd reached a new level of bliss, and I just thought, maybe that's how you meant to do it, and we're just getting it wrong. Just had this look on his face that he was in ecstasy. Maybe I'll have to do that one day, but right now I can't stop eating them all.
Brilliant.
VJ says he made scones the other day. Or did you make scones?
This is getting very surreal now. Now we've gone from books to scones.
It's the way we go. Next week, we're going to talk about baked goods.
Bakery, yes, is our segue into next week's. Again, baked goods is a subject close to my heart, though. Well, and my heart disease probably. But I do like a scone. Books to scones via kids' TV shows. Yes, that's what you get if you join into Agents of Sigmar. Apparently, we used to play a game. Somebody told me the other day, but I've forgotten what that is now.
Nah, I don't think so. We need to decide on a topic for next week at some point, because we always wait until like Monday night, and then we're sitting there going, "Oh crap, we need to come up with a topic to talk about." So if anyone has an idea for a topic for next week, put it in the comments now.
Let us know. If you want to run the whole live show, do let us know.
I'm going to go eat scones and
we need lockdown to finish just a little bit, even if it's just like you can have one bearded friend come to your house or something, and then we can play in the garage.
Yeah, I don't know when things are getting this crazy. It just seems mad to me that we're going to tell people you can go and meet a friend in the park, but just one friend, and you still have to stay 2 meters away. But we're going to stuff loads of kids into classrooms and go, that's probably fine. Just
straight up gangster rap next week. Well, interesting idea, possibly culturally inappropriate.
But a comeback. Yeah, I think we might get called out for appropriating other people's
everything.
Yeah, being shit. Just
kids are basically immune. Yeah.
It just makes you wonder, right? They're like, yeah, chuck all the kids back into school, and everyone needs to go back to work as well, but don't take public transport. Just use a private helicopter like we do.
A couple of weeks ago, flour was all sold out. Yes, I bought a 16-kilogram bag of flour because I got fed up with not being able to get it. So we have lots of flour.
How much have you got through of that?
We have, I would say, probably 10 kilos left. We did give quite a lot away to the neighbours.
Anthony says, black metal rap, blood for the blood god style.
But apparently it was nothing to do with the shortage of flour. It was to do with the fact it was shortage of bags, because all the flour, and apparently it was the same for toilet paper, but all the flour was usually used for catering. And they put it in these big bags, and they didn't have enough small bags to put it in. So that apparently is where the flour.
That kind of makes sense.
That's why we bought a big bag.
So the toilet rolls were the same?
And we couldn't get syrup. When I looked at syrup, you could only buy like litres of it. I thought, I don't really need litres of syrup.
I mean, if you want to make sure you're going to last the lockdown, just buy a couple of gallons of syrup, 50 kilos of flour.
And I've got eggs on retainer with the butcher.
Yeah. We ended up buying, because we couldn't get pasta anywhere, we ended up buying pasta off of Amazon. So we bought a 6 kilo order off of Amazon that we were going to order and then split between multiple friends. So we ordered this 6 kilo box of pasta, and it came in like lots of 500 gram bags. So that was nice and easy to divvy up. And a few days after it arrived, we had a box delivered. And like, what's this? I opened the box. It's another 5-6 kilo box of pasta. And I'm thinking, did I order 2 lots by accident? So I checked on the order and I had a look and like, no, I didn't order 2 lots. So they just sent me another 5 kilos of pasta by accident. So I
only had litres of syrup to mix it with. You'd be laughing.
So I emailed them. I was like, "You've sent me 5 kilos of pasta, and as this stuff appears to be of the same, level as crack cocaine right now, do you want it back?" And they were like, "Nah, you might as well keep it." Cool. I think we ended up giving most of that box away to various people. Like, anyone need pasta? We don't ever.
Have you got through it yet?
Yeah, we are just on the last bag now of what we kept. Yeah, we're just about to go off.
I'm running out of rice. I can't get rice.
Can you not? We're getting on Tesco's, no problem.
Okay, we haven't got rice, but the last couple of times I've tried to. I had some. I've tried to order it and I haven't been able to get it. So hopefully I get some tomorrow. I've got a delivery coming tomorrow. Very exciting.
Anthony's saying that his wife has banned people coming over. She's expecting the next spike in COVID cases. Well, it's going to happen, isn't it?
I'm reading something today. A friend of mine, or one of the other people on Geek Dad, or Geek Mum as it is, because she's a mum, was saying, and she's in Australia. She was saying that when the schools reopen, they've been told they have to go back, otherwise they'll be fined.
Yeah. You sent me that thing.
I did. I said it to you, didn't I? I said it sounds like madness, because here the schools are about to open up, but you don't have to go, or your children don't have to go. I don't have to go.
Well, I don't know. You keep the kids at home, you can go. I mean, that's good.
Well, that's true. That's not a bad idea. Yeah, but we don't have to go. So We'll see. Not fined, but they will be marked absent. Okay. Well, she implied fined, but
yeah, I think the thing that was being shouted about said something about $1,000 fine if your child is not sent back to school or something. But
interesting.
I mean, marked absent. I mean, who cares really? In the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things, I mean, it's not like that thing matters. To be honest, in the grand scheme of things, after a year or so, it's like I remember years ago when my youngest still had lots of problems with his tonsils, and he was off school. It was like every third or fourth week he'd get tonsillitis again before he had them taken out eventually. And we got a letter once basically saying, "Oh, he's been off the school a lot." Like, yeah, with recurring tonsillitis. I don't know what the fuck you want me to do. But he's got a temperature of 101 here, and he's on antibiotics. So, I know. Thanks for the stating the fucking obvious. Thanks a lot. Oh, we might have to talk to you more about it if he has more time off. Like, well, fucking speak to his tonsils because they're not under my control.
Well, thanks for that, Pete.
Anonymous just says his kids are his kids' school is refusing to open insufficient teachers. My eldest school has sent an email around already, basically saying we're not opening on the 1st. I don't know what the hell the government are on about, but we ain't doing it, so don't worry. It's like, okay.
Fines if benefits you can have withheld if your kid is absent for too many days. Interesting. VJ's son has been in daycare the whole time. I think daycare. I don't know about daycare. It's been mostly shut here, I think. Boris going to teach the kids.
God,
yeah,
can
probably.
you imagine that, what he'd be teaching? Don't think I'd even want to know.
Classics.
Yeah. So I think we've probably hit a wall here with books.
It feels like we might have done. I think I've gone through all my list of books. Anybody got any books they want to shout out before we close? I've got one author here, Robert Jackson Bennett. His Foundry Side books are quite good. There's 2 of those out at the moment. Yeah. They're good.
I'm not sure James has bought anything for the last 5 minutes, so he needs a few more books to buy.
Okay, Jay, yeah. James, if we had to read one book, what would it be?
Yeah. What would it be? What would it be, James?
Yes.
What would the book be, James?
Yeah.
I'm trying to still work out how I'm going to get back to reading books one day. If this channel ever does capsize
Uprooted by Naomi Novik. I've never read any of hers. I'm going to write that down too.
If this channel should ever shut down, then I'll suddenly have a lot of time spare for painting and reading. Being attacked by bugs. Bug attack. Bible, fuck off.
Yeah, I do occasionally think maybe I should sod this and just do some painting. Forget the channel or forget the reviews. Because I've been busy this week and I've actually really want to get on with my painting.
The thing is, if we gave up on the channel, I'd probably give up on the hobby, and then I wouldn't need to do any painting. So
what about debt reviews? Andrew says. Sorry, Andrew. Do I need to do one this week, Pete? What's going out? What's going out this week?
It's Godsworn Hunt versus Sepulchral Guard this week.
I do need to do one. Yeah, okay. I better get on that then.
We both do.
Yeah.
What's even more important is you need to copy the other file across tonight so that I can actually.
I've set myself a reminder to do that. Yeah.
I did a deck review last week, Andrew. Thank you very much. Although, did I? I didn't do one for the Reavers versus the Gits, but I did do one for the week before.
I think you did do a Reavers one, did you? Unless you did 2 Reavers. We have Reavers versus Condemners, though. Anyway.
Yeah, but
we don't really discuss this. Godsworn Hunt, yes, we're playing Godsworn Hunt. In fact, the Godsworn Hunt are getting out two battles in a row, I think, because I'm playing them this week.
Yep.
So I played them last week. Well, last week we did Underworlds Online, didn't we? But I played them the week before, and I'm playing them this week with a slightly reworked deck.
Yes. And I'll be taking Despoilers this week. So last time round it was Sepulchral Guard versus Godsworn Hunt, and this time it's going to be Despoilers versus Godsworn Hunt. And I think next time we were talking about doing somebody else versus Sepulchral Guard, weren't we?
Somebody I'm going to bring versus Sepulchral Guard. I mooted bringing that up, updating the Volley Caller Gits deck and playing that against.
Yeah. Or maybe we need to bring out the a man offensive deck that he's done, making aggro great again.
Is that a Wild Hunt? I might play the Wild Hunt. Yeah, I might bring that.
Yeah. Because that might be a bit more efficient at taking on Sepulchral Guard than the Godsworn Hunt were, because Godsworn Hunt are a bit crap.
Well, I was going to bring the Gits, but updating Volley Caller, taking out Volley Caller, that's pretty much it.
So it's just the deck now.
Yeah, I think Despoilers are better than Godsworn, and I'm going to prove that on Thursday night.
Conrad Mini says RPG next week. You mean playing it or talking about it? Because we kind of already talked about it.
We did RPGs last week. We could do it again next week, but
we've not got much else to talk about right now with the way things are.
No, I need to read properly through Soulbound, and I had a really good review on RPG.net So I am looking forward to playing it, and they have said that they're bringing out an adventure soon, because the main stopping thing is not having time to write an adventure, but they're going to bring one out. So then maybe we could play some sort of game of Soulbound somehow, but we'll see.
Kyle says we should play Fire Slayers as well.
Yeah, at some point. At some point. Do your own version of the 2 turds in a punch bowl. That's been done. That's so last week.
Yeah, we don't copy other channels, Matt. We're innovators and originators, and generally very lazy and can't be bothered to do that. It's the biggest reason why we don't do that. Soulbound. The problem I've got with Soulbound, like with all RPGs, is with everything else going on with the channel and stuff, is finding the time to do something like that. It's just
it'll be another evening that will be taken up, but we'll see. I'm going to read it, and I am reading it, and go from there. I've got my archetypes to get through. It's a lot to say.
Well, excuse me. I did flick through it, and even just idly flicking through the sections, there was a lot going on in there. I was like, there is a lot to go through here and read. I can see me definitely glazing over whilst reading that at various points.
The sucky thing about Soulbound is you have to play the order races. I think there are rules for playing non-order races, and I think they will come, but that's not really that different to Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. You couldn't play an orc, for example.
The other problem he's got is he says he can't play Git or a Skaven. He's not interested. The chances of you dying if you play a Skaven are so high. You'd be rolling a new character every 20 minutes.
But I haven't looked through it, but I guess you could make it work if you wanted to. Yeah. But the problem is I'm at that point in my life now where I don't want to make that work. I haven't got the energy.
If the rules
if
are
somebody
in front
makes
of me,
it work for me, I might consider it.
Yeah. And although you say you have to play the order races, I mean, you can be a Dark Elf or a Door of Cain or whatever they're called. I mean, they sacrifice people and cut their hearts out. That's not very nice.
Having read through them, I really think that they're characters for sociopaths, the Daughters of Cain. They haven't really got any redeeming features.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a shoehorning for them to get that into place, and I still don't know why they didn't put the Daughters of Cain into the Chaos side, because they worship Cain, who in the previous version was like an incarnation, a version of Khorne. So it's like, surely they put Skaven in with Chaos, so put Dark Elves or Eldar or Daughters of Cain, whatever you want to call them, put them in there as well.
They are an order race, yes. Seraphon would be cool. I think Seraphon are coming, but I think, as we said last week, the Seraphon were taken out because of the GW rewrite. Write an RPG where you play 50 Skaven. Oh, that's a good idea.
An RPG where you play 50 different Skaven in one go.
Swarmbound.
I think I remember reading a thing about a group of people that did a role-playing game once online where they were all Skaven or they were all orcs or something like that, and it just ended up, they obviously, every time they found anybody who was vaguely nice, they just killed them and then looted them, and then infighting and stuff, and I thought, this is like our role-play groups. That's what we do all the time.
It could be interesting playing a group of Skaven. I could see that it could be good. I'm not sure I'd want to do it, but it'd have to be run in a certain way. But I think that would be quite good fun to do. Say everything twice, yes. It takes long enough as it is.
So I think we're probably going to call it there for this evening.
Yes,
we've talked a lot about books and very random other stuff. So if anybody has any suggestions of what we could cover next week, do post them in the comments.
Yeah.
Or either in the chat now or in the comments below after this if you're watching this later on in the week. And we'll see what we can come up with. I'm not sure what else we can do.
Why so terrible?
I mean, you want us to write a book on it? They just, bless them, they try.
Off to read about zombies. I'm sorry, Wolfman Gaz, I can't remember what you were reading, but yeah, good night, everyone. Enjoy happy reading.
Yes, thank you everybody for tuning in tonight, for giving your suggestions. Thank you to James for coming along, because I know these channels generally aren't stuff that he's that interested in, but he has stayed up just to listen to tonight because it's all about books.
Cheers, James. I didn't realise you were a big reader, James. We have to say, I'll ditch Pete and we'll start our own channel.
Nice. I'm right here. Right here.
The Lanherne Chronicles. I'll look those up as well.
There's another one for you to buy, James. You need to stick them on your list. I did remember reading a series where they made all the X-Men zombies in a graphic novel series. That was quite cool.
I haven't read that one. I've read Red Sun, Superman Red Sun. That's pretty good. That's
that
right.
one. Love
Yeah.
Red Sun. In fact, I think I read that at your house one day when we were playing,
okay.
when we were role playing, and not we, but the group were role playing. And I remember it wasn't particularly interesting to me that time, and I think I just read all of Red Sun whilst we were playing.
It's very good. Very good. I think they made it into a TV animation thing now too. Anyway,
Cool. Well,
on that note,
we're dragging this goodbye out, so we should actually say goodbye.
Yeah.
So we'll be back same time next week, guys. Stay safe,
Yeah,
everybody.
thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in. Yep. Cheers.
All right. Bye.